On today's Locked On Texans podcast, this ain't the same old Texans team from week one. How can the Houston Texans combat the Ravens? We talk about that and Noah Brown being out for the rest of the playoffs.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome Wednesdays here at the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Of course, we did miss a day, so we apologize. Thank you for checking out today's episode. If this is your first time, to our first-time listeners and viewers, thank you for stopping by. Subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On, and make sure that you subscribe on YouTube as well, or wherever you get your podcast. And to all of our returning players from the Himalayas, welcome back. As Cody and I continue to talk Texans, I'm your Texans football analyst, John Some Sports Guy Hickman. And on the other side, of course, Texans Credential Media member, Sports Illustrated's own Cody Davis. Before we get into it, today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com and use code Locked On to get $20 off your order. That is JASE, jacemedical.com. Cody, we look at the improvements from this coaching staff. That's actually, and it's all Cody's idea, by the way, and it hit me right when he got here. So I love that conversation. Can't wait to discuss it. Make sure you stick around for that. How can the Texans combat the Ravens? That's going to be an interesting discussion, but we open up looking at who was at practice, who was not at practice, and of course, for the umpteenth time, I'm talking about Noah Brown, who was placed on IR. So we'll get into how that impacts Houston. Cody, who's at practice?
Before we get into that, man, round of applause. We made the NFL versions of the Elite Eight. We still playing football in mid-January.
By the way, this is not Texas team. Is this not the state of Texas team? Since 2002, the Houston Texans, 5 playoff victories. The Dallas Cowboys, Cowgirls, however you feel about them, 4 playoff victories. And while the Houston Texans made the Cleveland Browns grip the sheets Saturday, the Dallas Cowboys was gripping the sheets Sunday on a holy day. So shout out to the Houston Texans. I want to throw that little tidbit out there.
Yes, sir. Shout out to the Houston Texans, man. It's just surreal, walking inside the Houston Methodist Training facility and still taking notes about who is at Texans practice in mid-January. But of course, that's what we're going to start off with today. The non-participants heading into the divisional round for the Houston Texans on Tuesday was Andrew Beck, Jerry Hughes, Shaq Mason, Sheldon Rankins, and Laramie Tunsil. Outside of Sheldon Rankins, who went down with a shoulder injury on Saturday, a lot of the other guys like Shaq Mason, Jerry Hughes, Laramie Tunsil, you guys already know the drill by now. Those guys were giving vet days, so 9 times out of 10, they're definitely going to finish out the week, and it's nothing to get alarmed about. They're definitely going to suit up Saturday against the Baltimore Ravens. However, what I like most about this was the limited participants, but mainly Will Anderson Jr., John Grenard, and Malik Collins. You guys know that over the last couple of weeks, especially Will Anderson Jr. and John Grenard, those guys have not been practicing all the way up until that final regular day of practice to make sure that they're eligible to suit up. But knowing that those guys, however, were limited at practice on Tuesday, says a lot. One, they definitely want to suit up against the Baltimore Ravens, which I think we all know that. But 2, and most importantly, it just means that both of their respective ankle injuries are getting 100% healthier. So that's always good news. However, John, like you just mentioned, for the umpteenth time, and for, I guess this is the 5th time over the last 7 games we're sitting here talking about Noah Brown not being a participant at practice. As you guys may or may not know, but the Houston Texans did place wide receiver Noah Brown on season-ending IR due to a shoulder injury he sustained Saturday against the Cleveland Browns. Here's what Coach D'Amico Ryans had to say about the loss.
Yeah, it's really tough losing Noah. Noah has been great for us all year. All right, when he's been there and been available, and Noah's made clutch plays and critical moments, big time plays. You talk about the Cincinnati game, the Tampa Bay game, those big games, those pivotal games that we won. That was because of Noah and the playmaking that he made for us. So it hurts losing Noah. We were really excited to get him back. But it's going to be tough, so we have to replace him. All right, somebody has to step up and be able to make those plays. We'll add Steven Sims to the roster, and Steve brings a dynamic ability in the return game, which I think that will help us this week. Also, just being able to utilize him on offense as well with his speed, his playmaking ability.
John, I'm actually going to let you take the helm in talking about how can the Houston Texans replace the services of Noah Brown going into this divisional round game. However, I definitely want to use this time just to say I think this should be the last straw for Noah Brown in the Houston Texans jersey. And I hate to say that only because, look, don't get me wrong. When healthy, and like Coach D'Amico Ryan said, when available, he was a wide receiver who actually went out there and made some very good plays for this organization. And we remember those back-to-back games he had, I believe against Cincy and against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where he caught 13 balls for 325 yards. However, those were the only two games where I could look back and say that Noah Brown really stepped it up for this wide receiving core. Other than that, there was times when Noah Brown was out there. We was wondering whether or not he was dealing with an injury or not dealing with an injury because his production was so low. I go back to the game against the New York Jets right after Nico Collins went down with I think it was a hamstring injury, if I'm not mistaken. We automatically looked at Noah Brown as this team's number one wide receiver in that game, and he was non-existent. Now, I get it. I understand it. The whole entire offense, the whole entire team looked bad against the New York Jets, but it was just one of those moments where I'm like, you got to give them something. And I want to correct myself really quick. Another game that I thought about Noah Brown stepping up really big was the first victory, against Tennessee. He stepped up really big for that, but this is, as of right now, Noah Brown has missed 4 of the last 6 games. Saturday is going to be 5 of the last 7. And I look at Noah Brown and I look at this wide receiving core, and I'm thinking to myself, do I want to bring Noah Brown back on another 1-year deal? Or do I want to use that vacancy, use that money, and probably spend it in free agency or try to get another up-and-coming wide receiver in this year's draft? I would take the latter, try to get an up-and-coming wide receiver in this year's draft and add to this wide receiving core. Because, look, with the addition of Tank Dell and the emergence of Nico Collins, this wide receiving core is definitely going to be in a better position for the 2024 season. However, I just look at Noah Brown and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm not too sure if I want to risk this for another season.
Man, you know what? And I don't want to necessarily get too ahead because we're in playoff mode right now. But I definitely will look at the logistics of whether or not it's cost effective to bring it back. Noah Brown has 4 games with 50 or more yards on the year, 2 massive games, average 17.7 yards per catch when he did play. The problem is he didn't play a lot, and the bigger problem is he's not playing Saturday. Exited the game this past Saturday
in the first half.
In the first quarter was not a factor at all, right? And so you do look at whether or not it makes sense financially to bring him back, or if there's somebody else that in the league that you can bring in, because I think no matter what, Houston needs to sign a wide receiver in free agency and then draft one as well. But can Xavier Hutchinson, who's already on the roster at a cheap deal, give you potentially what Noah Brown can? John Mechie, as we saw him get a little bit more comfortable in Saturday's game, which I'm going to bring up briefly. Can he do that? Houston will still invest in their wide receiver core, and I think for depth purposes, it's important to look at Noah Brown. Because I think for Houston, it's important to look at what you can't do next year. Of all the good things you did this year, what you can't do next year is have games where it's just Nico Collins out there being productive. So the wide receiver depth chart, that's going to be important for them to improve. I think you more so have to look at moving on from Robert Woods. But I do want to look at right now for the playoffs. When we look at Noah Brown being out, Cody, I want to ask you and listeners out there, you let me know how you feel. Who should be more prioritized coming up? Should it be John Mechie more prioritized in his offense, or should it be Robert Woods or Steven Nelson? And I know we kind of,
you mean Steven Sims?
Still Steven Seals, excuse me, Steven Sims. I know we've not been as highly on Mechie as we wanted to be. Remember at the start of the year, I was excited to see Mechie. But after we just saw what he was able to do, how productive he was for Houston in his first big playoff game, who should be more of a priority to get out on that field? Should it be Mechie or should it be the other two wide receivers?
I'm gonna say Robert Woods, man.
To get the snaps. Who should be out on that field? We know it's going to be Nico. He's the number one guy.
Mm-hmm.
After Nico, do you want to see Robert Woods out there? Because I'm asking this because Houston has a wide receiver problem, talent-wise, because who's not out there. There's a deficiency there. But I can't help but think at this stage in the season, at this stage of his career, Robert Woods isn't giving Houston's offense anything.
Well, I only say Robert Woods only because he has the experience of playing in big time games. That's the only reason why I'm saying him. And look, this isn't week 5, and you just trying to get to week 8 until Noah Brown comes back. No, this is do or die. And I just feel like, given what's at stake, a chance to finally get to the AFC Championship game, I will put more of my hopes in Robert Woods than a John Mechie.
This segment is brought to you by our sponsor, BetterHelp. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off our chest, big or small. Certain things can really start to get to you, like a lot of this losing Texans fans have been going through the last couple of seasons. I know y'all been upset, and it's good to look at Cody and myself as your sports therapist. You vent in the comments. You can talk crazy in the comments. Get it off your chest, whether it's the big, we lost to Sean, we need a quarterback, whether it's the small, who's going to be our next wide receiver. It's okay to let it out, especially to some people that are unbiased in your life. So today, I want to say how I really feel about something. You might even been thinking the same thing this week, and this is how I really feel about Robert Woods and that contract. I hate it. I've hated it from day one. I think Houston overpaid, and now that we're down to the nitty gritty, I'm sitting here questioning again, like I just said, who should be more of a priority to be the wide receiver 2 for this team. Robert Woods or the rookie John Mechie. And I'm telling you guys, I think right now the combination of Mechie and maybe Xavier Hutchinson to me is more valuable than what Robert Woods is going to bring to this team. That's it. I let that out. I feel better now. I feel better. But also, I feel better telling you guys about BetterHelp. Therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports teams in our life, and it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible, suitable to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. Visit BetterHelp.com. This is also the perfect time to let you guys know about something that can bring joy to your life. That's Prize Picks, the daily largest fantasy sports platform in North America. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. You're not battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections. Sit back and watch the winnings roll in. With the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from specials leagues, a league created specifically for combo projections that include 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, LeBron James and Nico Collins, 10.5 combo, 3-pointers made and reception. Or do you want to play alongside some of Prize Picks favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz. You can now find community plays under the promo tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prospects community each week. Download Prospects on your phone or go to prospects.com/locked on and use code locked on NFL for a first time deposit match up to $100.
For the Ravens, I feel like they've grown throughout the season as an offense. I feel like they're much more efficient. Lamar is playing exceptional football, MVP caliber football. He's done a really good job of, not only running the ball or creating off-schedule plays, but getting the ball to his playmakers. Zay Flowers truly pops off the tape with his explosiveness, his dynamic playmaking ability. He's a problem in the open field with the ball in his hand. So we have to do a really good job of tackling in space. It's going to be huge in this game, right? Not just one guy being at the ball, but got to have multiple guys around him because he's such a dynamic player. Throw as many things at Lamar as you want to, but he finds a way to make plays. That's what makes him a special player. No matter what type of looks he's gotten on tape, right? He's made a ton of teams pay because of just his playmaking ability, right? He's seen a lot, made a lot of plays, so it's going to be a challenge no matter what we present or what we throw at him.
That was your head coach, D'Amico Ryans, talking about Lamar Jackson, the inevitable MVP. By the way, I still think it should be either Tyreek Hill or CMC, but Lamar Jackson winning the MVP makes my heart happy. But he's talking about Lamar Jackson and how he can contain him. By the way, guys, you mentioned can't miss tackles on him. The Houston Texans only had 4 missed tackles this last game. They've been doing a better job in recent weeks cutting down some of those bad angles, cutting down some of the undisciplined characteristics of missing tackles and things of that nature. So give credit where credit is due. When you look at how to beat these teams and getting off the field defensively, missing tackles is a no-no. They've been doing a better job at that, Cody.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, John, the improvements that they had in missed tackles, because when you take a look at how can the Texans come back the Baltimore Ravens, I look at it from a standpoint on the defensive side of the ball. Of course, you are going up against a team that finished the regular season ranked 6th in total yards, averaging 370 per game. But the one thing they have to do is take away their rushing attack. This team, the Baltimore Ravens, finished the season ranked number 1 in the league, averaging 156 yards on the ground. And it's crazy because about an average of 52 came from Lamar Jackson. But I'm glad that you talked about them missing only 4 tackles against the Cleveland Browns on Saturday, because, John, throughout this whole entire season, from week, let's say 2, from week 1 to week 17, we have given this Texans defense praise about the improvements that they have made at stopping the run. This was a team going into the Indianapolis Colts game, if I'm not mistaken, they had only given up an average of like 88 to 89 yards on the ground. However, in that very last game against the Indianapolis Colts, they gave up well over 100 yards. It was their worst game at stopping the run. Jonathan Taylor, I can't remember how many yards he finished with, but he ran for, what was it, like $152 or $172 or something along those lines.
Crazy.
It was something
they
crazy.
200 yards on that game.
Yeah, they rushed for over 200, and Jonathan Taylor almost had 200 by himself. But what I'm getting at is, I remember talking to D'Amico Ryans that Monday, asking him, how can they improve their run defense from that one game going into the playoffs? And he mentioned making sure that they get better angles and get better at tackling. He said when he went back and looked back on that film, he saw way too many times where the Texans had too many missed tackles. That is definitely how the Texans can definitely combat what the Baltimore Ravens wanted to do.
To your point, against the Colts, 15 missed tackles.
15. How many they had against Cleveland?
4 against the Browns.
That's going to be the difference. And we know Lamar Jackson, part of the reason why he is arguably, I'm going to say, one of the best dual threat quarterbacks of all time, because my all-time favorite, I'm still going to put him number 1. But one of the reasons why Lamar Jackson is going to go down as one of, if not the best dual threat quarterback of all time, he is a shifty quarterback. He's a shifty runner, and he's always making people miss tackles. So this is one of those games, man, where they not only going to have to be locked in on the game plan, but they're going to have to hone in on their fundamentals. And I know that might sound crazy, especially in a team that's in the NFL version of the Elite Eight, but this is how they're going to have to contain the Baltimore Ravens. Make them throw the ball. Do not let them run.
Well, you know what? I think a lot of people are looking at how different the Texans are from week one, how different the Ravens are from week one. Both teams are different, absolutely. No doubt about it. But when you look at that game, and my takeaway, that was Will Anderson's first sack. The Texans defense registered 4 sacks, 1 interception, 2 forced fumble. Lamar Jackson only threw for 169 that game and had a QBR of 12.2. When I look at what the Houston Texans must do to combat this Ravens team, who again is a much different and much better team than week one. You got Zay Flowers, who's been balling for that offense. It's crazy to say that Lamar Jackson, got to give him some praise. Lamar Jackson is doing all of this with a rookie wide receiver as his number one receiver. And, the remains of, no disrespect, but the remains of Odell Beckham Jr. But for Houston, that was a 10-point loss, right? 0-2 in the red zone. Got to be better. Gotta be better. Houston is now ranked in the middle of the pack in the NFL, the regular season, scoring in the red zone about 56% of the time. 0-2 in the red zone. That's 14 points. You lost by 10. It's a 10-point game. 8 penalties. Gotta clean it up. Missed tackles, for sure. But you cannot give this Baltimore Ravens offense a chance to stay on the field. Defensively, you got to play smart, got to play clean. And offensively, the man who played great last week, phenomenal even, stoutly, Larry Tunsil, we can't have no false start. Right, you got to limit the holding. So I look at 8 penalties. CJ Stroud, I talk about Larry Tunsil. They had 5 sacks allowed on offensive line. Now, mind you, at that time, week one, they were still trying to figure out that offensive line. Remember, it was bad to open up the year. No Quisenberry, no Titus Howard. That offensive line was makeshift, was bringing guys in who just got off the plane 2 days ago. They had the jersey from the other team. It was really bad. But now you do look – we talk about the Ravens being a different team and a much better team. Well, the Houston Texans got better offensively because the offensive line has played consecutive games together in a row, and they've been performing well. So they allowed 5 sacks in their first game. And one of those sacks was on the opening drive, 4th-and-1 play. That's where CJ fumbled on, in terms of taking care of the ball. That is still important. The Ravens defense is a nasty defense. They're fast. They're physical. You got to take care of the ball. But to me, guys, it comes down to 0-2 in the red zone. That was probably Lamar Jackson's worst game of his MVP year. And that was to the Houston Texans, right? So I know a lot of the other things, like you're looking at man, looking at zone, what Lamar Jackson does against those type of defenses. It's crazy stat. Shout out to John Crumpler. I'm looking at it right now. Against zone, 70.5 completion percentage, 9 TDs, 3 interceptions, a 51.2 success rate. Against man, he's a little worried, 60% completion rate, 15 TDs, 4 interceptions, 46.3 success rate, So you're going to have to mix it up, of course, defensively, give him different looks, maybe a lot of cover 4 fronts, right? But ultimately, when you get down there, Bobby Sloyd, who just called a hell of a game, we don't want to see no more QB sweeps. We don't want to see that. Get creative with it, of course, but give your guys an opportunity to put 7 on the board. They cannot come away from this game with 5 field goals. 5 field goals will not beat the Baltimore Ravens. It just won't happen. I know we come to talk sports to escape some of the realities of life, but can we talk real life for a moment? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics right now in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. Guys, this information and news is very scary. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if one of my kids, my nephews, somebody, my wife, Cody got sick while a supply chain issue kept them from getting life-saving medication. Thankfully, we'll be okay because of Jace Medical. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of illnesses. This stuff can happen to any of us. Visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by an on-board certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jacemedical.com and use offer code locked on to get $20 off your first purchase. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. I just want to say that locally, fans are doing a very good job. Some of the local media heads are doing a very good job of not backing down from the bully, which is the Baltimore Ravens. But I also want to mention that I've seen a lot of talk where it just seems like people are outright taking this game from the Texans and giving it to the Ravens. And I don't think this is a game that was like the Browns game where the Browns completely beat up on you. The Texans were competitive in their first game. The Texans held Lamar Jackson in check. No TDs, 1 interception, forced fumble, 4 sacks. They did a very good job of containing Lamar Jackson. Will Anderson got his first sack in that game. This ain't like the Browns where they beat up on you the first time and you want to get some revenge. Yeah, you lost, but this team was competitive. This team was in a dogfight. And if it wasn't for some of the early offensive issues that the Texans had, again, a 10-point loss, maybe the outcome would have been different to open up week 1. But I just wanted to say that both teams on both sides of the ball have gotten better. And I think we're going to get a hell of a matchup. I don't think this is going to be what the Dallas Cowboys gave us. I don't think this is going to be what the Texans gave the Browns. I think this is going to be a damn good game because both teams from week 1 got better on both sides of the ball. Coaching got better. Quarterbacking got better. Running the ball got better. Defensively got better. Right? So I think we're in for a hell of a game.
Yeah, we are. And that's where I want to go next. A lot of people are giving Baltimore the edge, even with coaching. And I get it. When you take a look at the Houston Texans, they have the quote-unquote inexperienced coaching staff. When you take a look at the Ravens, they're led by one of the most successful coaches in the game today in John Harbaugh, 11-9 postseason record, a Super Bowl winning coach, a coach of the year coach, I believe, back in 2018 or 2019, somewhere along those lines. But this coaching staff has been just as impressive, and they are part of the reason why the Houston Texans have made it all the way to the divisional round. They have done a very good job. And earlier on Tuesday, I had an opportunity to ask Coach D'Amico Ryans, where do he feel the biggest growth has been with him and his staff?
With our coaching staff, I feel like you're excited that first game. So everybody's really trying to feel each other out. You don't quite know how guys are going to be on game day, but I feel like as a coaching staff, we've really grown just in our communication and how we operate on game day. I feel like we're much more efficient right now and not overly, excited when things happen or, hey, this is a penalty. Like everybody's kind of more calm. Everybody understands what to expect on game day. We've grown in the aspect of just working with each other and working off of each other really well.
You look at some of these assistant coaches and position coaches, man. Dino Basso,
the D-line coach.
Yep. Dino, a guy that I think we've loved here in Houston, and I wondered at some point, does Dino leave and go be a DC somewhere? Who knows? But Chris Kiffin brought over, was a D-line coach with Cleveland. He came and coached the linebackers, and he's doing a very good job for Houston. Chris Strouser, offensive line coach.
Oh, definitely shout out to Chris.
Yeah, man. Everybody's pulling their weight, and so you look at the improvement of the coaching staff. I think what makes this team a little bit different is they've had so much adversity in terms of roster construction through the year, and these guys just keep turning it out. You see the improvement and development of Christian Harris. Right, a lot of times we may say D'Amico Ryans, and the DC developmental coach, but he's working with his positional coach too, Chris Kiffin. Mm-hmm. Look at Juice Scruggs, rookie. Jared Pass when he's on the field, right? Got two rookies who produced very well for Houston. And Juice Scruggs, I mean, my God, did Houston not get it right? I'm curious to see how they put this offensive line together next year because I know Juice ain't going nowhere. He's a starter. Whether it's at left guard or center, he's starting. So, God, I just want to shout out the positional coaches for Houston because they've done a hell of a job this year, taking what's been given to them, coaching them up, putting them out there on the field for Sundays and Saturdays, which Saturday they got a game against the Baltimore Ravens because the Houston Texans are still in the playoffs.
Yes, sir.
Thank y'all for listening to today's episode. Be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Give me a follow on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Playoff football, baby.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, it's Cody, COTYDAVIS_24.
My name is Willie Beeman. My name is CJ. I need CJ. I need one of them hype videos from CJ. That'd be dope, man. Him and Tank. Shout out to Tank Dell.
Yes,
who's
sir.
been on this team. That's what I want to say earlier. Tank ain't left the building. And they talked about him just being around and that energy Tank has been bringing. CJ Stroud on Tank Dell. I love having Tank around. I'm constantly around him. It means a lot to have him, even while he's going through something, man. Former athletes know when you're around your brother who can't be with you due to injury or maybe grades for some high schoolers, whatever the case is, that energy in that locker room is still something that you need to push forward. So shout out to being a teammate, team player, overall great guy, Tank Dell, man. Until tomorrow, crossover.
Peace.